Well, good evening and welcome to Real Lives. And if you've been coming, I think 40 odd times now over the course of the last year, then welcome back. And if you're here for the first time, then a very special welcome, whether you're here on Zoom or if you're here on YouTube or if you're watching sometime in the future. Welcome. Great to have you with us for an exciting evening tonight. We've got our first film director on Real Lives, and we're going to be hearing from Francis Annen, film director, later on. We've also got a singer-songwriter that we'll be introducing you to very shortly, my good friend Andy Mayo. So we've not only got films tonight, we've got music and we've got all sorts. So we hope that you enjoy the next hour or so. Because we've got music and film and all the rest, we're not going to have questions tonight. So just to let you know, there'll be no questions, but there'll be plenty of other things to keep you occupied for the next hour and 15 minutes. But before we plow into this evening, let me just give you a couple of notices. Firstly, next week, you don't want to miss next week, we're going to have Christian Diamond. We're going from films to football. Christian Diamond used to play for Crystal Palace, and a fascinating story. So do come back next week, 8 o'clock for that. And then just to say, if you've missed any of the Real Lives events, you don't need to miss them because they're all up online. The best place to go is to reallives.net, and you can get access there and links through to YouTube, where you can see all sorts of different interviews with folks that we've had on a Saturday night. But also worth saying, there are some interviews there that are exclusive, if you will, as it were. They've not been shown here yet. One particularly that you might want to look at is called Look No Hands. Fascinating story of Brian Galt, who was born with no arms, no hands. And he shares his story. And the wonderful thing about this is you can have that in English, but we also have it in Polish. We've got various interviews and events in different languages. So if that would be of help to anyone, or if you can think of someone for whom you'd like to send that to, then do go to that, reallives.net and on YouTube. Do check them out. But now we're going to hear from Francis Annen. Francis and I spoke earlier this week, and I'm sure you'll enjoy our conversation and find it very interesting. So without further ado, let's listen to what Francis has to share. Well, good evening. Welcome to another evening of Real Lives and another interview. And over the last few weeks, we've had all sorts of people on Real Lives, but I think this is the first time we've had a film director. So tonight we've got Francis Annen with us. Good evening, Francis.
Yeah, how's it going?
Great to have you with us. Thanks for being willing to be with us. Now, Francis, we've known each other for a few years, since you were a student in Bournemouth University and I was working at a church down there. But most people won't know you through that connection, but they'll know you obviously as a film director. And your first, now you told me the technical term for this and I wrote it down, first theatrical feature. That's the correct term, isn't it? I was just saying the first big film, like ones that you have to go to the cinema to see, rather than just ones that you show to your mates on YouTube. But your first theatrical feature came out last year, and that was Escape from Pretoria. We're going to watch a short trailer of that now, before we talk a little bit about that. So let's have a look at that now.
No pens, no radio, no newspapers, no political conversation. Visitors are once per month.
Did you ever sleep through my bed again?
I could get used to this.
You are the white Mandela. You are the most deluded of them all.
Whatever happens in there, don't give up.
We've heard about you too. How many years?
8 for me, 12 for him. Oh, but we don't plan on staying that long.
It's 20 foot high. The barbed wire covers every inch of the yard. Boys with guns. From lock up until dawn. Tunnels in any direction. They just lead you back onto prison property. Everybody comes in here and they're going to break out of here by next week.
Always a first time.
That's my touch exactly.
You want to make key with pencil and drawing paper?
No, from wood.
You're too crazy. So all we have to do is make a really complex key, then get it to reach a keyhole on the other side of a steel panel 3-inch thick iron door to which we have totally no access. I love it.
You fail, you get 25 years if you're lucky. A bullet in the head if you're not. Hold!
What is this?
No! Your whole plan is doomed to failure.
steer anything.
We are prisoners of conscience. So it's different for us.
Well, we're prisoners of war.
Back off. What is wrong with you people? Did you to break us?
This is how we fight.
Hold on to that anger. It reminds you there's another world outside all this.
Okay, so Francis, tell us a bit about how you came to making the film. What kind of gave you the idea to pursue this? It's obviously based on a true story, isn't it? So, what was your kind of lead in terms of getting involved in it?
Yeah, I mean, it was, to cut a long story short, I met the producers back in 2012. Mm-hmm. They had bought and then lost the rights and then regained the rights to the film after I kind of came on board. And then we went through a period of writing for a few years. I sort of picked up the writing and reframed the script. It's about a 400-page book which Tim wrote called Inside Out: Escape from Pretoria Prison, and that's the book that the producers have got the rights to. And so it was a case of condensing that to a 2-hour kind of motion picture. So it was definitely to some degree challenging. How much of before the prison, how much of in the prison, and what's important, and there's a lot of characters in the prison, so how much do you sort of go down those rabbit holes? And so yeah, there's a lot of time taken to sort of figure that out, and eventually I went for a much more pared down, just the 3 main characters approach, and a figurehead from the sort of the Rivonia trial, which was the famous trial in which Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu and Kathrada and all those guys were sort of convicted of the crimes that they committed, in speaking out against apartheid. So Dennis Goldberg, one of the characters, he was the only white man to be convicted alongside Mandela and Sisulu in that trial. So we meet him as well. But it was the idea was to sort of take those 4 characters as the main characters in the prison and just see the film through their eyes. So there was a writing process. Then we went to Daniel Radcliffe in 2016, and he loved the script and came on board. And then there was about another year and a bit of soul searching, trying to find the money to make it work. And then we were supposed to shoot in Cape Town. I went to visit there. I had all the sets built or partially built, and then we had to move the whole production to South Australia.
Wow!
With about 7 months to go and just start again. So it's pretty.
Did you have to literally move the sets, or did you just rebuild everything in Australia?
Yeah, we were using partially built sets. We were going to sort of augment and do this and build add to the sets. It was actually a Robben Island set, which was in Cape Town, but a significant chunk of the South African money actually fell through, and so it was either a case of wait for a year, and we all know how that would have gone if we'd waited. Yeah, exactly. The film wouldn't be made anymore, or try and find a similar location, because we had my availability and the actors' availability was a certain window, and so and all the pots of money were in a certain window. So if you lose one pot of money, then the other pots get nervous and say, come back to us when you've got and then it all falls apart.
Wow.
And so they were desperate not to do that. So say, okay, well, if we were to go to Australia, very similar climate, very similar environment, the post-colonial architecture, everything sort of checks out. Then could it work? So I flew out to Australia, after having flown to Cape Town, and checked it out, said, okay, it can work. And we sort of then everyone just piled in January 2019, and we just sort of made it work, and just forced it. And then, we were shooting and then moved to Melbourne for Pulse. So it was just all very a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Often how films are,
Yeah. So from the kind of first idea you had of the film, when you first read the book and kind of started thinking about it, to actually it being released in the cinema, what length of time was that then?
Well, I first met the producers in December 2011, and the film was released officially in America and the UK in March, mid-March 2020.
Wow.
So we're talking about 8 or so years. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh. So like we just don't realize often when we just go and watch a film, it's like the amount of work that's gone into this, like the incredible logistics in terms of getting it all together. Now, I guess lots of people ask, don't they? Like, what was it like working with Daniel Radcliffe, famous for Harry Potter, but what was he like as a person? Obviously you had to work very closely with him.
Well, he is famed across the industry for being, lovable, so friendly, so warm, accommodating. There'd be hordes. I mean, within I think 2 days, the hotel he was staying at had a camp outside it with people in tents, waiting to get a glimpse. But he would almost exclusively stop every morning and say hi to the fans and take pictures and write books. Nuts, not nuts, but amazing. So he's really, really very actively keen to make sure that he's showing as much warmth and kindness as possible. So that was really striking to see. I would have just been, like, look, I've got something to do, but he would try and do that because he understood the importance of reaching out to people. So that was amazing to see, and that extends, throughout his life. So he's extremely kind on set. When we're reading the script, he would, he wasn't giving loads and loads of thoughts, but when he spoke, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you're totally right. That doesn't make any sense, So he would have very incisive, page 60 so and so, this, and you'd go, yeah. Pretty much every note he gave was, either exactly right or would make you think about how to fix a certain problem. So he was really helpful. He didn't just turn up on set and do it. He was with you thinking about, does that make sense? Does that make, and you'd be a fool not to listen to those little kinks that he was sort of unraveling, that would help, make a bit more sense of the story. So yeah, it was great. I loved working with him. Thought it was a really good filmmaker. It's
Brilliant. So in terms of the content of the film, as the kind of trailer makes clear, it's a prison break. It's based on a true story. One of the things that amazes me, and I love this when you watch a kind of film that's based on a true story, where you think, I would not believe this if I didn't realize it was based on a true. Like if this was just like Franco making a film like about like escaping from a prison with wooden keys, it's like, what? That just seems ridiculous. But the way you create tension is just quite incredible. I didn't have many nails left by the time I came out, and. Like, how did you do that? I mean, let's watch a clip now. There's a particular clip where, for me, like I was on the edge of my seats as Daniel Radcliffe is trying to work out whether this key kind of mechanism is going to work as he tries to open a door from the outside whilst being inside. Like, how did you do that?
So yeah, I mean, for that scene, obviously it's based on a true story, so they really did use that contraption. The real Tim Jenkin, who Dan Radcliffe plays, came on set for 10 days. Gave the art department a good, what form was helping them to sort of work out the mechanics. And we also had Tim's book and a lot of diagrams. Tim had also done a 26-page document. This is what it looked like. This is how I did this and that, so that everyone sort of had a rough idea. This is actually what it looked like. And so, yeah, I mean, tension-wise, I was just really keen to make sure that you didn't feel that you were watching something happening over there, but that you were involved in it. And so I was trying to put the camera, right over his shoulder, or there was lots of shots where you could see from his perspective. I tried, where possible, not to have as much music, so you could hear footsteps, you could hear a dripping tap, you could hear echoes, you could hear, him clanging and things. So you felt the sense of, no. If you just plaster too much music over that, you don't hear a lot of that, the nuance. So I was really trying to, my way into tension was put the audience in the shoes of the character, and then hopefully just by nature of what he's doing, it will be tense because, he's doing stuff that if he gets caught, he's stuffed. Yes, that was for scenes like the ones like that scene. That was the hope, just to try and be more immersive in that way of storytelling.
Amazing. And you were telling me about some of the kind of things that you did. So like when you have that scene where they kind of have the key coming into the lock mechanism, you actually constructed like a giant internal lock mechanism. Is that right?
Yes, there's a clip online somewhere of,
yeah.
So the lock, the real lock was, probably, about maybe this big,
Yeah.
1.5 foot by half a foot. So we made times the size. So, it's, very big.
Yeah.
And there's a key, which is about the size of my arm. And what they call it is a force perspective. So when you look at the key from the side, it is big at one end and then very small the other. But when you point it towards the camera, it feels fine. So if I was holding the key, it wouldn't feel like odd because it would be big, like the way that, my hand is bigger here. Yeah. So you got pictures of Dan holding this key, which is actually this big, but when he turns to the camera, it looks fine. Then he puts it to the camera. And then the camera was on a special rig so that when he turned the key, the whole camera turned, in unison, and then he could pull the key out. And then, so there were a lot of little interesting things. I tried to keep, I tried not to use CGI because there was something about the physicality of it which was a bit otherworldly. That looks real. It's a real internal lock. It wasn't just, kind of graphics, which I think our naked eye can see. We can see when it's a bit CG. So we're trying to use physical techniques where possible, just to sort of video. And also it's linked to the storytelling because they make physical replica keys out of wood and it's chiseling. So we wanted to do physical camera techniques to sort of marry or pay homage to the physicality of it. So there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah. So the film came out, I got to watch it and hear you kind of talk about it live in Glasgow last March, just before the world went crazy. I think it was the last time I saw my in-laws. We came to watch the film together. And then, of course, COVID hit. Cinemas closed, everything goes crazy. And I guess you must have been thinking at that time, like, what is going on? I just spent years of my life creating this thing that's finally at the cinema and now all the cinemas are closed. I mean, how did that feel at the time? What was going on?
Yeah, so there was a bit of a scramble to get the film in as many cinemas as possible. The world's chopped up into different territories. So Germany, France, America, they all distribute your film in different ways as each country sort of sees fit. And so some, like say in South Korea, we were number one in the cinemas because the cinemas reopened in May and we were number one for like a month. In Mexico, when cinemas opened there in I think September, October of last year, we were number one for a couple of weeks. So in some countries, theatrically, we were doing really well because all the big movies had sort of, been shelved, Bond and Marvel movies. And in other countries, they were not able to have any theatrical release at all. So it went straight to stream, Netflix and iTunes and things like this. And then places like the Middle East, we did really well because cinemas were open there for a long time, so we were, doing very well. And so there was lots of different types of ways of handling the pandemic relative to the pandemic's impact in those countries. We also released in Japan around September time, also again did very well. So it was, what ended up happening was, with a film like this, you have a sort of finite period of time. It's 2-3 months of intense interviews and this sort of thing, and then the film disappears. But we had like an elongated stretch. We were kind of in the consciousness for maybe over a year because it was being released slowly in different countries. So that was actually ended up being a bit of an advantage and allowed for us to sort of be able to sort of talk about the film a little bit longer than would have probably ordinarily been the case. In the UK, it was a bit of a mess because we were out everywhere online and in cinemas. Then cinemas closed, and then a big streamer, Amazon Prime, bought the film, but they weren't able to release it until February of this year. And so it was not available in the UK from about May through to February of this year, May of last year to February this year, whilst it was number one in other countries. So it was an odd thing where it was available in some countries, not in others. It was in cinemas in some countries, but online in others. So that was quite messy, but the benefit was that we were able to sort of have a slightly extended rollout of the film, albeit very messy and multifaceted, but
yeah, fascinating. So let's backtrack a little bit. Did you always want to be a film director? Was that kind of an ambition you had from childhood, or where did the idea, or where did the kind of desire to be in kind of film and TV come from originally?
That's, I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess my original plan, because my family are sort of from West Africa, they're into law, politics, government, that was probably going to be something like my original plan: to study political science at Manchester University, become an intern at Labour or Conservative, some sort of party, and then potentially even go back to Ghana and maybe work in a sort of quasi-governmental sense there. I don't know. That was what was on the cards. And I love political science, but then I did a training course at the BBC, and then kind of switched. Basically, I kind of switched and went to study sort of television directing at Bournemouth, where I met you. And even at that point, because my sort of graduation pieces, if you want to call it that, at the BBC, was a documentary about waiters. I was a waiter, so that I can get into all these hotels, and and I loved being able to sort of get shots and being able to sort of cobble the story together in the editing room. And I thought, documentaries is like pure. It's pure. It's not kind of filtered by the artifice of kind of the dramatic. But as I was at uni, I kind of thought, oh well. Oftentimes when you're doing documentary, you're still editing. You're still telling a narrative, but you don't have the control of the performance and location. So you end up with sometimes an incomplete version. So sometimes maybe drama is, you can still say interesting things, but you have a bit more control over, you can do takes again, and it's not so snatched. So I kind of moved a little bit towards kind of drama as opposed to documentary. So I think at that time at university, 2003-04 is when I started to sort of move over to drama. And by that point, I was kind of interested in political ideas maybe, but, I was synthesizing them with telling stories, I guess. So, around that time.
Wow, fantastic. I was just thinking back, actually, because obviously we were at the same church in Bournemouth, and I remember that you obviously directed sometimes the filming at Lansdowne Church. I was thinking maybe we should rebrand all of the sermons from that period, directed by Francis Annen, also in Escape from Pretoria. So, your early work.
Yeah.
But so you went on from Bournemouth. What were some of the projects you did before? Obviously, most recently Escape from Pretoria, but you were involved in the BBC for a while, weren't you, doing various things for them?
Yeah, I did a bit of training there and was kind of in the camera department, messing around a little bit, and then did some music videos and some short bits and bobs throughout my postgraduate years, and then did a sort of independent, sort of low budget drama. Then did a few more of those, some short films, won some awards, managed to do a little bit of Holby City, a few episodes of that, just to sort of with that BBC connection, it was sort of interesting thing to do. And I was in London, so I sort of darted around doing little bits and bobs, some stuff for charities and kind of academic organizations, Tyndale House and things like that. So I was just doing little bits, just give me a camera, have some fun, so I was doing that for a while until Escape from Pretoria sort of started to become quite a focused, serious thing.
So that's how you kind of came to being a film director. But you're also a Christian. How did you become a Christian? And we'll talk about how that affects your work in a minute. But how did you first come to know Jesus?
I guess you would call it, the typical, I'm not sure, but kind of good Christian lad, African, raised in a Christian household, went to church, from when I was very young, playing drums, and looking up and watching the music team playing and going, oh gosh, I want to be part of the music team. But my mum was, I'm now very grateful and thankful, but she was really quite good at constantly reminding me from quite a young age that, look, yes, we're Christian and stuff, but you're not just a Christian because I am, or because, we go to church on Sunday. Like, this stuff really needs, you need to sort of really know it for yourself and have a personal relationship, with God yourself. Have to understand, who Jesus is, this Jesus that we follow and where he comes from. And, here's all the bits in the Bible. So she's really good at doing that and going, but, don't just say I'm kind of loosely Christianized, like, believe it or don't, but let it be your thing. So from age, literally from age 8, 9, 10, she was always telling me that, you need to have a personal faith for yourself if you're going to take it seriously. So by the time I went to university, I very much had that in my head that, I think I am going to make this choice, and therefore, that's going to mean, you know, this. And so, I think if I'd just been told that, you know, you're just kind of in a Christian family, you know, this is what we do culturally, you know, that can be sometimes a bit tough. But when you're kind of told that, you know, if you want to take this seriously, then take it seriously, you know, and understand what this means and what it's about. I think that's good. I think that was really good for me, because it just meant I wasn't sitting on the fence, you know, and wasn't just kind of a nice cultural thing, but it meant something. And I think for me, the big thing that I've always stuck to was when I was taken through the historical stuff. So I was taken through, you know, Jesus is not just some cool guy who the West made up in the 4th century. No, like, you know, 4,000 years ago, they're talking about where he's going to be born. They're talking about there's going to be a census in Egypt, and they're talking. This is stuff that actually happened, which they know about thousands of years before, and you know, the type of accusations that will be put against him, and where he's going to be buried, and you know, also I was like, whoa, okay, that you know, when I was a teenager, I was like, okay, like this is not just some, you know, stuff that just starts here. It's got a whole deep root of history, and there's a bunch of prophecies which Jesus is ticking off, you know, in every sense. So that, I think that at that point, before uni and at uni, I started to really go, oh, this is serious stuff. You can't just dismiss this as just nice stuff to make you feel good. It's actually historically doing a lot of stuff. So I think I still hold on to that historical stuff. You know, if I'm feeling a bit like, what's going on, I still go back to, but this is no joke. You know, this is not just some Jesus, Western Jesus. This is the guy who's rooted in, you know, thousands of years of prophecy and history. You can't just make that stuff up. You can't just explain that away. So I think I find that as a thing that I, you know, use as my base. You know, this is serious stuff that you've got to sort of engage with. So yeah, so I think that around that time is when I was starting to go do or die, and I thought this is pretty serious, interesting stuff. But yeah.
Have you encountered hostility or negativity towards your faith? I mean, I guess first at university, and then, you know, in TV and in the film industry. Like, have you found it a kind of challenging place to be a Christian, and how have you dealt with that?
It's a good question. I mean, so I think, you know, so I'd probably talk about the whole of society. You know, society is like, this is what I'm doing, this is my choice, and this is my life. It's a very much an individualistic kind of culture. So if you go to, like, say, more of an African culture where I grew up in, you know, there's, even if you look at, say, in Ghana, where I'm from, the way that houses are built, you know, there's a compound in the middle, and you know, your parents and your folks live in the compound. It's much more communal. There's still, you know, privacy, but whereas in the West it's very much, you know, me and my, so I, you know, so even on a cultural level, I've been like, okay, you know, Western culture is getting a little bit more individualistic, so, you know, people are doing what they think rather than, so I think that's, you know, just a reality of the way that society's been. You know, we've got iPhones, and, you know, we have our own little Facebook page, and, you know, everything's is driven by our own individuality. So, you know, if you understand that, you go, okay, you know, if I'm doing my work and I'm able to do it well, and able to do it to a good standard, that's going to be a good example, you know, of taking whatever it is that I'm doing seriously. If I meet people or people that are interested to, you know, or, you know, if I can offer to, you know, say a prayer for someone, if that's, you know, helpful to them, and they go, you know, thank you, that's a sign of care for them. And then as you get deeper and as you get to chat to people, you know, sometimes people have questions and things that they want to know about. And if I can answer that in a way that's gracious, and help people to sort of understand, oh, you know, I thought it meant this, but actually this is going on, then that's really useful. Probably if you go to someone and say, you know, this X, Y, and Z about, you know, this, you know, this is what's going to happen with your life, and, you know, I'm coming to kind of tell you this and that. That's something that I think culturally people are not as people want to be the ones that come to you, rather than feeling that you're kind of working in a different space, and not sort of understanding that, you know, people are doing things by themselves. So that's, I guess, what I'm describing, a postmodern culture where it's, you know, it's very individualistic. So, but I mean, I don't think that's something that is unique to television or film industry. It's just, you know, if you meet the average filmmaker, they're just no different. Everyone's hustling, everyone's trying to get bits of money together to make films, everyone's trying to, fine actors, and everyone's sort of doing very similar sorts of things. I often find there's a lot of camaraderie in terms of the independent filmmaker. I've got a lot of friends who I'm working with, collaborating with, sharing ideas, sharing contacts. So I don't find it particularly hard or hostile. But as I said, culture and the postmodern society are sort of in such a way that everyone's doing everyone's in their own lane, and you need to find a way of being a good witness and being a good example, which takes that into account, but also is able to share something with them that that can make them kind of think, okay, well, that's right for you, that's what you want, but I'm also interested to find out more about it in a way that is not overly committal, but opens their mind to who Jesus is, opens their mind to is this all there is to life, and what's the main purpose and meaning of it? So I don't find it overly hostile, but you are aware that, like society, it's very individualistic, and so you're operating within that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I guess one of the things that must be a challenge when you're kind of, you've poured 8 years of your life into making a film, and then you sit back and the reviews start coming in. I was just watching a clip of Mark Kermode, and he was very warm and positive about it, and said he really liked it, and kind of eating his nails by the end of the film and stuff. But I guess that you get some reviews that are more critical, and you'll get that when you're kind of in that kind of world. Does being a Christian help in terms of when you're getting kind of critical feedback, or positive feedback? How does it affect your view of does it give you a foundation that helps in that kind of area?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, if it's negative feedback, then you just say, okay, that's good. That's positive critique. There's been, I've not read everything, because at the start I was reading quite a few bits, but then it was like hundreds of reviews. I think on IMDb it's close to 30,000 reviews. Wow. I can't read those, but yeah, at the start I read a few, and they were largely basically it wasn't a turd. It wasn't terrible. It was better than okay. It wasn't just okay. It was it was somewhere between. It was good. It was good. It wasn't very good, outstanding, but it was a good. And some people did think it was very good. Some people thought it was great. Some people have said, it's equal to Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, wow, but yeah, I mean, interestingly, what happens is, and now I'm working on potentially 7 other projects, and it falls away, so that's more the issue, the thing, more that you don't really hold on to it. It sort of blows up, becomes a thing, and then the next project sort of comes around, then that sort of falls away, and then people sort of own it and review it and do whatever, but you kind of become a bit distant from it. And yeah, I think eternally speaking, that your hope is not in, and your the ego, it's not in, my worth is in how good this film is, and if people don't think it's very good, then I'm nothing. You are able to disconnect your personal worth, if you believe you're created in the image of God, from the work you do. You can divest those things very easily, in a way that maybe if I wasn't a Christian, maybe people who are not Christians still can do that. But if your worth is a bit more bound up into it, I'll put my worth there, which I don't do. If I get good reviews, you just say, well, thank God, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You're not feeding your ego with that, because you understand that there's so many elements which are out of your control, which led to that film being made and led to them enjoying it, that you don't want to take credit for all that. The world is bigger than me. So yeah, I think it does impact you, but particularly with regards to, if it's negative, your worth and your sense of identity is not in how good people like your film. So it does help. Yeah.
So it kind of guards you against both pride on the one hand and I guess despair on the other.
very, very real. Yeah, I genuinely feel that very consciously, that if I get good reviews, I'm consciously sort of saying, well, thank God, you're brilliant. I'm glad I was able to make the film. I'm glad you enjoy it, but I'm not trying to sort of get an ego boost. And if it's not great reviews, I'm also saying, well, brilliant. What can I learn from that? I disagree with that review, but that's fine. The work and me are separate. I'm going to keep marching on. I do feel that, yeah, quite consciously. Yeah.
Just one other thing, talking about your faith, and particularly Escape from Pretoria, because the whole basis of the film is that it's a guy who's campaigning against the apartheid scheme, a white guy who's joined this cause and is in prison for that. So he's a prisoner of conscience. did your faith kind of come into your thinking there in terms of making a film about this and the idea of racial equality? And I guess, you know, in the last year, this has been a huge thing, hasn't it, in terms of looking at issues of racial equality? Like, how does being a Christian affect the way you look at these kind of issues, both historically in South Africa or in the kind of present day context that we're in?
Yeah, I mean, the film was based on the book, so, you know, the book is guiding what you're sort of doing. Yeah, as a Christian, obviously, you know, you're going to want to be speaking out for, you know, the sick, the orphans, the widows, people who are disenfranchised, you know. So one's natural predilection, you know, if you're really following Jesus's words, is to be like, this is like messed up, like you can't do this. So yeah, so Christianly, that was there. I mean, in terms of what I put from that into the film, because we had the book, you know, that was really informing things. But in terms of it drawing me to the project, yeah, I think, you know, I'm sure I'll end up making, you know, a film that is maybe less issue-based, that's just a kind of straight action film, you know, that might end up happening. But I am trying to look for films that have some bigger question, or, you know, that you know, that in some way are sort of speaking about broader themes. You know, you are sort of, you know, look, if it's just like a straight, you know, prison break, you know, that's one thing. But I would agree that the apartheid element was a big draw. It was like, okay, this is not just some gangsters trying to break out of prison. This is people who, you know, relatively reasonably virtuous people fighting for a just cause. That was a thing that was really appealing, and that is a thing that in other films I'm trying to look for something with some of that, even if they're not historical films, but something with a bit of just a, you know, a more meaningful perspective. So it's not just, you know, popcorn film, but you will hopefully think a bit about things afterwards. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, thinking about, you know, trying to undo injustice, thinking about the idea of sacrifice, you know, that these guys are willing to make a sacrifice in order for a greater justice to sort of be done. Obviously, there's lots of themes with Jesus, who's, you know, our sacrifice, and who's willing to lower himself and willing to sort of sacrifice himself in order for our, you know, forgiveness. So there's some of those themes, and I think with a lot of prison films, actually, like Shawshank, there's been a lot of almost quasi-Christian or religious themes that are there, because it's about that, you know, going in, death and rebirth and life and death. You know, there's a lot of that there. So yeah, those things were pricking up in my ears, you know, when I was reading the book, and tend to be kind of important when I'm looking for projects. Is there that little something of, you know, meaning there? So it's not totally devoid of that, but. Yeah. You know, don't quote me, because in years' time I might end up with, you know,
why did you make this film, Frank? But I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, if the Christian story is true, and we're absolutely convinced it is, then we shouldn't be surprised that we find echoes of that in every story, in a sense, in every great story. And obviously, as a director, as a Christian, you'll be seeing that and maybe bringing that out maybe more than perhaps someone who wasn't seeing that in such clarity as you do. Frank, our time's almost gone, but before we finish, what could people look out for? What are possible projects have you got coming up? Obviously, Escape from Pretoria has been your first, but we hope it's not going to be your last film that you're involved in. Can you give us any clues as to what might be coming next?
Can I? Yes. Signing non-disclosure agreements. There's, I mean, potentially 7 projects in various stages. A film, hopefully, when we don't know, it was supposed to be filming this year. It's been moved already, so we'll see. But it's based on the Notting Hill riots of 1958, which is kind of interesting, sort of thriller. There's a remake of Count of Monte Cristo, very kind of quite exciting, which it looks like I'm on. There's an interesting film about an ex-convict who ends up joining a prestigious acting school and ends up getting in and applying and being really, you know, good at that job. So kind of coming of age sort of thing. There's a potential, possible, interesting African set horror about the sort of battle between animism, you might say, and the West. You know, just kind of, again, some interesting themes there about the old versus the new and past versus the future. And there's a bunch of other projects, which I can't talk about much more. But yeah, there's a lot of irons in the fire. And I'm sure in the next 12 to 18 months, there'll be something somewhere to see. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, if you haven't already seen Escape from Pretoria, then I'd highly recommend it. And you said that the best way to see it now, if you're living in the UK, is?
Best way to see it now in the UK is on Amazon Prime. You can also go to justwatch.com, which is a website which tells you where you can see films in different countries. So if you type in Escape from Pretoria, justwatch.com, it'll tell you whichever country you're in, where you can see it in your country.
Great. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You won't have any fingernails left at the end. So, yeah, don't know what you need to do to kind of stop yourself biting your fingernails. Yeah, stick Marmite on them if you don't like Marmite or something. Yeah. We look forward to seeing more stuff that you're involved in the future. But thank you so much for your time and for being with us.
And love to talk to you. Yeah, nice. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Brilliant. Well, wasn't that a fascinating story? And we look forward to seeing more stuff from Francis coming out later. And if you've not seen Escape from Pretoria, then why not watch it? As I say, it's a real nerve-wracking film, even though the title gives away the end. Yeah, you will still want to know how they escape. But we've already had a wonderful interview. Now we're going to go back to Andy, and Andy's going to pick up on some of those themes and sing us a few more songs before we wrap up our evening together.
Thanks, Michael. Well, I've seen the film and I saw it just as it came out. It was absolutely brilliant. And that interview we've just listened to is inspiring. So thank you so much, Michael. And thank you, Francis, for that. Brilliant. Well, I was trying to think what's a cinematic kind of song that I could sing to you. And this is a song based on a famous ancient story that Jesus told. It was about two brothers who were both alienated from their dad in different ways. And one of them goes on this long journey to try and set distance apart from his father. And as I wrote this song, it's echoing from that story, but also I think it's an echo of our own hearts and the way that we are looking for the next thing, something that's going to bring fulfillment and life and belonging and peace. I called the song Dreams. Yeah. And he dreams of a homecoming. He dreams of a belonging. And he dreams of peace. He dreams of a homecoming. Yeah, he dreams of a belonging. And he dreams of peace. And home swells his heart, brings tears to his eyes, and he can almost picture it now. But he's looking for the next boat time, he's asking for the next train line. And he dreams of a homecoming. Yeah, he dreams of a belonging. And he dreams of peace. And every road, every step, and every hitchhike ride, every touching conversation, every next bus station, every new situation. And he dreams of a homecoming. Yeah, he dreams of a belonging. And he dreams of peace. Yeah. And somehow he feels that this is not the place as he stares into another stranger's face. And he's asking for directions, and he's asking for suggestions, he's asking for acceptance. and he dreams of a homecoming. Yeah, he dreams of a belonging, and he dreams of He dreams of a homecoming. Yeah, he dreams of a belonging, and he dreams of he dreams of peace. I don't know whether Francis would make a video for that. Well, perhaps you could picture it though. You know, somebody just looking for, searching for the place where they belong, the place where they find peace. Maybe tonight that's you. You know, it was great to hear what Phyllis read to us at the beginning. What a powerful moment that was. There's Jesus. He's been turning the world upside down already by the people he'd been interacting with, the transformation he'd been bringing to people's lives. And now, today, he's in a religious place, a synagogue, and he gets handed a scroll, and he turns in this scroll to this ancient piece of poetry, this ancient piece of prophecy that speaks of one who would come one day, who would turn all the broken things inside out so that they weren't broken any longer. This is how the prophecy went. Phyllis read it to us. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. You can picture the scene, you know, everyone sitting there thinking, oh, I'm dreaming of that day. I'm longing for that to come. And then he rolls up the scroll, that passage says, recorded by Luke, then a very careful, deliberate historian. And he gives it back, sits down, everyone is looking at Jesus, and he says, today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. Jesus is saying that he's the one who's come. He's the one who's come to reveal what God is like. The Spirit of the Lord is on him. And as he comes to show the grace of God, the favor of God. I've got a picture for you. Let's see if we can make this come up on the screen. This is an arrow. You know, I always used to think that it's about how we make our way towards God and how we get to him. But as Jesus is speaking in this synagogue, he's showing them that God comes towards humanity. And God comes towards humanity in the person of Jesus. So it's not about people scraping and scratching their way into God's presence, but it's about God himself coming to us in the person of Jesus. And that's good news. It's good news for the poor, he says. It brings freedom to the prisoners, freedom to the oppressed, and to those who can't see. Well, it brings to them vision and revelation. This next song, it speaks about God's favor. It speaks about grace. It speaks about love. It speaks about a love that is lavish, poured out, that is shown in the character and the person and the actions of Jesus. It's called Lavish. Lavish love that drives out fear, lavish love embracing near, lavish love, adopting love that calls you child, adopting love pure, undefiled, lavish love. His love endures forever, and His faithfulness stands for all time. Forever love, untamed by years. From out of this world, love, the life appears. Lavish love. Forgiving love dies on the cross. Forgiving love, my gain. His loss. His loss, 'cause His love endures forever, and His faithfulness stands for all time. Yeah, His love endures forever, yeah. His faithfulness stands for all time. Life birthing love to last breath. God revealing love conquers death. Conquers death. 'Cause His love endures forever, and His faithfulness stands for all time. Yeah, His love endures forever, yeah, and His faithfulness stands for all time. Lavish love, lavish love, lavish love, lavish love. It's an amazing idea, isn't it? That the God of heaven would come towards us and that He should announce Himself in an obscure religious building in Palestine in 1st century AD as the one who's come to set prisoners free. I think I love that film because it is about the unjustly locked up prisoners being set free. Justice came as they escape. I don't know about you though. If I'm thinking about justice, something that I do long for, I also find a kind of fear awaking in my soul too. Because if justice were to come, where would I stand? What would be my story? Perhaps I wouldn't be convicted into a prison, but if there is a God who is good with a clean and perfect standard, where would I be? Justice, yes, I long for it, but I also fear its coming. One time I was on an aeroplane and I was sitting next to this guy, and I love drawing pictures. In fact, I find it hard to think sometimes without drawing pictures. And this guy sitting next to me, where he said, so we'd been talking about these kind of themes we're talking about tonight. And he said, so, what is the whole big picture of the story of the Bible? What is it about then? So I sat there and tried to draw some pictures for him, and I'd love to try and see if these help us too. I explained how there's a God who is clean and good and powerful, and how our existence is because he, the creator God, has made us. That's where we've come from. But he didn't just make us like a little boy setting a top spinning and stand back to watch it, but he made us to live in relationship with him, connection with him. But our ancestors, humanity, stepped out of that, stepped away from that and said, well, actually, it's okay, God, I'm gonna run things my own way. And as we did that, a decision that has echoed on through every generation, well, that relationship with God that we're made to know, that we're longing for, it's broken. And that should be the end of the story. But the message of Jesus is that he comes to us. He's God come here, into the brokenness, into the mess. Not us getting to God, but God coming to us in the person of Jesus. And he told stories like the one about the boys who are separated from their father. But also, Jesus went to die on a cross. And as he died on that cross, the central claim of Christianity is that Jesus was dying in our place to take all the rubbish, all the wrongness, all the stuff that stops me connecting with God. He was dying to take it away so that I could be forgiven, so that you could be forgiven, so that relationship could be restored. And the big question really is, what have I done? What have we done? What have you done with the person of Jesus? Have you come close to him? Because he's inviting us to that place of trusting him. And as we do come to him, well, that relationship is restored. That relationship comes. Naturally, we're all far off, but he's calling us, and he's calling us to come close, to trust him. I was one time playing a song in a prison. I was playing a whole series of songs with some friends who were in our band. Somehow we'd got this massive band with the drums and the double bass and everything into this prison. And at the end, one of the guys who'd been watching me the whole time jumped up and rushed towards me. And I thought, what's going to happen now? As he came close, he said, I know what you've been talking about, because these last few days in my cell, I've been reading this little Bible that I was given, and I've been reading about the Jesus who dies in our place to bring forgiveness, to set the prisoners free. And he told me his story of how he'd knelt down in his cell and said to God, I'm sorry for all the wrong things I've done. I understand that you're so loving with a lavish kind of love. Please be my king. Please forgive me. And he was delighted. His eyes were on fire, as he was telling me this account of his story. And then suddenly they all were shouted at, so you've got to go back to the wings, back to the cells. And he turned around and just started walking off. And then suddenly, just before he was out of earshot, he just turned back to me, looked at me in the eyes and said, Andy, I know I'm inside, but since I met Jesus, I've never been so free. And then he just turned around and disappeared. And I went home and I thought, I want to write a song for this guy. And I wrote this next song. And it's based actually on what Phyllis read to us from Luke, as Jesus announced that he'd come to set the prisoner free, to bring good news to the poor, to open the eyes of the blind. It's called His Name. And this is the last song for this evening. So after this, I'm handing back to Michael. He sets the prisoner free. He makes the blind see. He lets the lame walk, the silenced talk. His name is... His name is. In our world filled with shame, in our world marked with pain, in our world where we just fall down again, He sets the prisoner free. He makes the blind see. He lets the lame walk, the silenced talk. His name is. His name is. We long for justice, but fear it's coming. We long for peace, then go out to war. We long for a savior. We cry in the darkness, but we turn away from his nail-pierced hands. There'll be a day of glory. There'll be a day of majesty. There'll be a day when every eye will see. He sets the prisoner free. He makes the blind see. He lets the lame walk, the silenced talk. His name is. His name is. His name is. His name is. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. Well, thanks for this great evening, and it's been brilliant, Michael, to listen in on your conversation with Francis and to be able to think about these things together. You did ask me to pray as we closed, and I'd love to do that. And you know, perhaps there's some of us listening here tonight, and we've listened to Francis, creative man, but who has got a story to tell about a God who loves him and has drawn him into relationship. And tonight you've heard some stories and songs that point to this Jesus who sets the prisoner free. And maybe you tonight have become aware of this prison that is enveloping you because of your distance from the God who you're made to know. And perhaps tonight you're realizing that he's a God who holds his hands open, who wants to draw you into his embrace. Maybe you're realizing that, well, you can't get to him on your own, but he's come to you in the person of Jesus. And I'd love to just pray as we close. And why don't we thank God together for his generous love for us? And perhaps I could pray as though I was praying for the first time too. And perhaps some of you tonight want to echo this prayer in your own hearts. And as you do, then the team, the Real Lives team, would want to connect with you and help you to grow in your new walk with Jesus. But let's pray. Father God, we thank you that we can share this evening tonight and think about these biggest things. For many of us, we're thinking again about your loving kindness expressed even to us through what you've done through Jesus Christ. And we pray that all of those who know you already, that we would leave here tonight with that encouragement that you are the God of grace who comes to us in the person of Jesus, that you set the prisoner free, you make the blind see, and you bring freedom to the oppressed. But tonight, perhaps there's some of us who are listening into these things and thinking about them for the first time. And perhaps we are in that place where we want to say that we're sorry for all the things we've been doing that have been pushing you away as we've been trying to run everything ourselves, dependent on ourselves. We want to say sorry for those things that have cut us off from you, and we realize we can't get to you by ourselves. But we want to say thank you. Thank you for Jesus, the one who dies in our place so that we could be forgiven, the one who rose from the dead so that we could have certainty about what happens after death. We want to say thank you for your loving kindness to us, and we want to say, please, Jesus, be my King. Please forgive me. Please help me by the power of your Spirit to live for you now. We thank you for this evening that we've shared, and we commit each other into your loving and powerful hands. And we pray in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Andy, for your songs, for explaining them so clearly, and for pointing us towards this wonderful news that Jesus can set us free in the most wonderful way. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed being with us tonight, wherever you've joined us from. And as Andy's mentioned, we'd love to be in touch with you as a Real Lives team. And there's a way you can get in touch. Hopefully, it will flash up on the screen now. If you just go to reallives.net, there's a contact page there, and you can get in touch with us. Maybe you've prayed and echoed that prayer in your heart tonight that Andy prayed. You'd like to get connected with this God who loves us and has offered us his forgiveness. Well, if you would have done that, or you're thinking seriously about doing that, we'd love to send you a little booklet that explains more about how to do that and what steps you might want to take next to really get started as you begin your life with Jesus and now at the center. Or maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you've got questions. Maybe you want to look into this more. Maybe you're skeptical. What a great place to investigate this is actually to go back to the original documents and to look at the documents that this is all based on, those books that form what we can now call the Bible, the New Testament. And we'd love to send you a copy in the post. And again, if you go to reallives.net, leave us your details. We'll send you a copy of the New Testament so that you can read through. And why not start with one of those accounts of the life of Jesus like we've heard from tonight and read that for yourself. So we'd love to hear from you. Do get in touch. If you've enjoyed Andy's music tonight, you can hear more of Andy's music at turquoisetracks.com. Is it .com, Andy? Yes, he's nodding.
Yes.
Is where Andy has his music, and you can get in touch with Andy. You can hear more. You can get copies of CDs and whatever. So do that. And if you've enjoyed Andy, if you've enjoyed Franco, then as we've said before, it will all be up on YouTube, so you can watch it again. But better than that, don't just watch it again. Why not share it with someone who you're thinking, oh, I wish they'd come tonight. Well, they weren't, but take it to them, send them a copy of this evening's events, and share what you've heard tonight. And then do join us next week, 8 p.m. again, next Saturday evening. Christian Diamonds, the footballer. We've gone from film to football, and we're going to be hearing a fascinating story next week, so you won't want to miss out on that. But thank you so much for being with us tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Hope to see you again soon.
When the tide of life is pushing you upstream, everybody around you seems to break up your dreams. All you ever do just seems to make you want to scream. Won't you let the sun shine in? And if the springtime of your life is till it rain, and your music isn't loud enough to wipe out the pain, everything you do just seems to leave another stain. Won't you let the sun shine in? Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine in. And if you're walking down the road all alone, going nowhere like a rolling stone, all you want to do is to find another home. Won't you let the sunshine in? Jesus bring the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Don't lie, don't hide, don't try to run away. Don't lose, just choose living in a brand new day. Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine in. So won't you turn around and walk the other way? Start up living in a brand new day. Listen to Jesus, take what he has to say. Won't you let the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you, wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Yeah, let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you, wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine in. Let him break you, make you, wash out your sin. Let Jesus bring the sunshine